Okay, welcome everyone again to the Analytics Instrumentation Sync on the 19th of September. I have 2 points today. First one, we are starting into the new milestone now, since I think yesterday it's officially the start of 16.5. We have our milestone planning issue, which I'm gonna link now. I forgot to do that initially. Tanuja already created a video around the features and the prioritization for the features for 16.5. I hope most of you already had a chance to watch it. It's quite short, so it's a quick watch. If not, then please do that afterwards. I don't know, do we already have any questions around the feature prioritization? If not, I can quickly walk through the maintenance issues, and then if there's any kind of questions that come up either to that or to the features, then we can still walk them, try to clarify them while we're in the meeting. So let me quickly share my screen. Can you see the issue?
Yes.
All right. So again, Tanuja already went through the first part regarding the feature prioritization. There shouldn't be anything too surprising in there. We're going to talk more in depth about the two issues regarding monitoring after this. Regarding maintenance, we have a bit of carryover, actually not that much. Some of it is a bit out of our control, so it's mostly here to still keep track, so that we don't forget about those. One is to upgrade the version of the database version for the version app. That's something we need to check in again with infrastructure on the progress. The other one is to detect service ping anomalies within version app. As far as I know, the data team has it on their radar to connect Monte Carlo to the version app database directly, which would allow us to monitor things directly within the version app rather than depending on things being first exported and then imported into the warehouse and only being able to monitor there. We have a carryover of a removal from usage data or migration from usage data issue. Apart from that, there's a few more migration issues to get things out of the usage data.rb. I'm going to try to kind of bring more accurate numbers in the next sync, but I think we've already managed to reduce by the two usage data files by a few hundred lines within the last months. So as you might remember, our main usage data.rb file has had around, I think, 700 to 800 lines. I think it now has around 600. So we're slowly getting there. It's like step by step, metric by metric, we're getting them out of the usage data file. The other three things are, on the one hand, to make stricter validation of metric definitions. We discovered a few actually invalid metrics. So just to give an example, it's Redis total counts metrics that had a time frame value that's not all, which then just leads to confusion because the metric definitions were valid with our old validation, but actually the time frame was completely ignored because Redis counts always just do an all-time count. So people get confused and think everything's working while it actually isn't. So we want to kind of make these more strict and actually make sure that as much as possible a metric definition, if it's valid, it also means that whatever metric we're calculating, that will work out, and it's not that there's no combinations that are actually give a valid metric definitions but are not possible. Our version app is connecting to customer.dot to get license data. Customer.dot is going to introduce rate limiting. We need to make sure that we don't run into those rate limits, because we are apparently one of the applications that kind of requests the most things from version app, so we from customers dots. And the last thing there, apart from the migrations, is the update of metrics dictionary, actually. And its next version from version 2 to version 3. This is mainly being done because we discussed recently about, for example, introducing a UI around creating metrics and events. Most likely something like that would live inside of the metrics dictionary, or generally we'd like to use the metrics dictionary more and then kind of build up on top of it. And the earlier we do the migration of this major version from Nuxt, the better, because then it's going to allow us to kind of iterate more quickly on the metric dictionary and make sure we don't introduce even more kind of legacy code that we then need to migrate at a later point. So it should be easier to migrate it now than after we introduce more functionality into the metrics dictionary. So although that's kind of a big issue, we want to tackle it as soon as possible. When it comes to bugs, we have one carryover from previously. That's the missing service ping metrics when deploying missing service ping metrics when deploying a geo-enabled dedicated instance. We're waiting for feedback from the geo team or from people that have set up geo-enabled instances. It seems like this may be already resolved, but we're not 100% sure. So we need to wait for feedback there. The other two things are, we need to make sure that our track event API is actually failing if an event definition is not present. That's currently not happening. So there's the possibility of someone instrumenting an event in the front end and then just nothing being tracked actually, because the track event API will send back a 200, although nothing is being tracked actually. That's not good. And the other problem is that our the setup project API for our analytics configurator for the analytics stack gives a different app ID on each request. So you please set me up this project, and you get separate app IDs, but actually the later app IDs that you're going to get won't work. So it's only the first one that's actually going to be working. The next ones, you're going to get back new app IDs, but if you instrument any SDK with this app ID, it's not going to work. It's not going to deliver the events actually into the database. That's a run through of all the issues that we have on the maintenance side. I don't know, are there any questions around those? Anything that's missing or surprising from your point of view?
I don't see it right now, but there were two issues for monitoring the snowplow data and then monitoring the service ping. Yeah, there you go. I left a comment on the one for snowplow, but the table that you're planning on setting up monitoring on is going to possibly be impacted by a pretty big epic we're currently validating. Essentially, that table is dependent on a deprecated package. And we need to substitute in a supported package, and the downstream data could change as a result. So I left a comment in that issue, but just wanted to give you all the heads up. It's going to be like a KR type project for us because there's so many dependencies on snowplow data, and doing a hot swap of the data source is a pretty big deal. So it's something we're currently scoping out and trying to validate how much work it's going to be.
Thanks a lot for that heads up. I wanted to discuss those two issues a bit more in detail after the kind of run through anyway.
Perfect.
So we can go a bit more in detail on those things. Anything else that stands out to anyone, or that you have questions on?
Yeah, I see a lot of things related to Redis, and I'm sure not all of them I need to know the intimate details, but if there's anything that would impact downstream data, just please tag me on.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, if there's nothing else, then I think we can move on to the next point, which is actually the Monte Carlo monitoring that we're trying to get into. I'm gonna continue sharing my screen just so that everyone can see what I'm talking about. So we have a first Monte Carlo monitor instrumented. So for those of you who don't know, who might be watching, Monte Carlo is a monitoring tool for databases that's already been, I think, in quite heavy use by the data team, and many monitors being instrumented. So it lets you easily, for example, create SQL queries, and then based on the outcome of those SQL queries, create an alert that's then being sent to a Slack channel. Our monitors are currently configured to send alerts directly to our main Slack channel because there's not too many of them. We don't expect loads of alerts. So I think, previously made the decision that we still going to use our main channels just to kind of raise awareness around alerts for everyone. And the good thing about Monte Carlo is also it lets you easily, then as soon as you get an alert, kind of indicate if there's an ongoing investigation or if it's already been resolved. So it's a lot better than what we had before. This specific monitor, we've previously had that as an alert within Sisense, but within Sisense you only get an email. You don't even get a link to the dashboard or to the alert. So it always required a lot of kind of digging and pre-existing context if the alert was triggered to figure out what's actually going on. Now you get a direct or we get a direct link to here to Monte Carlo. There's also a description within the alert or the monitor, so that there's a link to another Sisense dashboard for further exploration and those kinds of things. So this is all kind of configured here within Monte Carlo. We can see the actual SQL query. What this actually means, so how the threshold is currently set, this is about the amount of bad events. So we want to get a notification if there's a too high number of bad events compared to good events within Snowplow, because that gives an indication that somehow someone misconfigured an event or something is going wrong. Right now, this threshold is set at 0.1%. So if the amount of bad events compared to the overall amount of events for a day is beyond 0.1%, we're going to get an alert. That hasn't happened for a long time. The last time it happened was, I think, end of July, where there was actually a major event misconfigured, which then lead to this alert. I just want to bring it up. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, just to give a little more context about other ways we use this in the data team that you all maybe could take advantage of. So this is like a custom SQL rule, and that's a really good use case for Monte Carlo. Another thing you can do is you can just tell Monte Carlo, here's a table to monitor, and it will set up just a suite of kind of standard monitors. So it'll basically, it learns with some sort of machine learning or AI, like expected data volumes on a day-to-day basis. Like it can detect, this table usually grows by X number of rows at this time of a day, or if it's a type of table that maybe, typically grows a lot on one day, but not on the other 6 days of the week, it learns that. It's a very smart tool. And one way it really helps us is sometimes if records just kind of disappear, or like a table stops getting refreshed, it's hard for us to detect that, like just looking at the data. But Monte Carlo is really good at notifying us because it knows how much a table is expected to grow or how much it typically would grow or contract. So it'll give us a monitor for this table just had 200 records deleted. Typically it has 200 records added, and it's hard to figure out exactly why that happened, but at least we know, like, oh, there's an anomaly, and we can go look into it. So that's just a little bit more context for you all as you start using the tool a bit more.
Yeah, thanks a lot. That's very helpful. Right. Yeah, and that actually kind of leads directly into the next point. So one of our key results for this quarter is to start monitoring more data quality metrics. And one of the data quality metrics we want to look into is just the amount of missing data, or kind of get immediately alerted if there's data missing. So the current monitor gives us just information around like kind of the wrong data incoming. But for example, it wouldn't trigger if there's like a lot less snowplow events coming in overall. So we already have 2 issues linked in the description regarding either monitoring missing events on snowplow and then also monitor missing data for service ping, because both of those things were the cause of incidents in the previously, and in both cases we oftentimes discovered that there's something going wrong too late. So we discovered too late that the amount of service pings that we get are smaller than expected, or that the amount of snowplow events that we get is smaller than expected. And so the idea, the first idea to do what we wanted to implement there first, the first proposal would be to try to create monitors on as low a level in Snowflake in the data warehouse as possible, and just count the amount of incoming events, and actually use the AI monitors that Miles just mentioned on that level, because we want to monitor the things that we can actually influence. So that's why we would go for the kind of the lowest level possible to get to in Snowflake. Because if there's something going wrong with dbt and so on, I mean, that's still helpful, but that's not something that we can directly influence normally. We are more interested if, like, already when ingesting things, something went wrong. But there's also, like, if you have any other ideas of what we should be monitoring for our team, then I think any suggestion is welcome. Or any other way to monitor these things would also be very welcome, so that we get aware of those things earlier.
I have one idea that you all can think about is one thing that's caused us to it's caused unexpected data before is a transition from one GitLab version to the next. All of a sudden, certain metrics will start timing out more than they were before. And so we have a couple of rudimentary monitors we've set up on the data team to see, like, comparing metrics from, version, I guess, like 16.3 to 16.4, and then seeing, like, for each metric, the prevalence of timeouts. Because on occasion, somehow on the back end, the metric gets changed and it just starts timing out like in an insane rate. So that's something we've done a little bit on our side, but that's something you all could look at, because that's, I think, something that's gotten us before.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be possible to statistically monitor exact values of certain metrics coming from service ping, for example?
So I've thought a lot about that, and the reason it's hard is because for any installation, the values might go down just because, like, their actual product usage goes down. So I think the best way to do it would be for the SaaS installation, which it wouldn't be like the actual service. It'd be, I'm not sure that I guess it would be in the service ping tables, but you'd have to basically, for a specific installation ID, you could look at the actual metric values delivered and see how those compare, like ping over ping or version over version or something like that. I think that'd be the best way to do it.
No, that's cool. That's still very useful. Thanks.
So I have one more question. So Miles, you were talking about these kind of like intelligence monitoring for tables. I'm wondering, how does it work? Is it that you choose one table, you tell Monte Carlo to monitor it, and it will come up with all of the different things that can go wrong? Or do you tell that, for example, you want to monitor the volume of events, and it will tell you that you got too many events today?
Yeah, so there's like a pick list of different things you can test. So like you can, like the two like most standard basic ones would be volume monitors. So just checking like how much is it growing and when, like at what times is it growing, and then freshness monitors. So is the table being updated on a cadence that falls in line with what has historically happened? So those are like the two easy ones. And then to monitor the actual values of the data, that's a little bit harder. Like Peter was talking about, like you have to a lot of times write a custom test to do that. Other things that it can do is it can monitor individual fields in the table. So it can monitor distribution of values in a field. It can like how often a field is null and or percent null, and there's all kinds of things like that. So I'd recommend just like going the tool and just like kind of seeing what you can do. But it has a lot of functionality. Also, on the alerts, I found that the ML or the AI, whatever it's doing behind the scenes, is pretty good. But if you find that it's like there's too many false positives, you can always set the monitors to be more or less permissive. So you can kind of customize the alerts to be, you know, as you can set your true to false positive rate however you want it. So if it's like a critical data source where like even the slightest thing should be investigated, you might want to give it like a, you know, alert on any, you know, potential discrepancy. But if it's something that like, you know, doesn't really matter and is very likely to be correct every single day, then you might give it like a tight threshold or something. That's another thing.
Okay. So you could potentially have some low-hanging fruits and some other testing.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay. It has quite a bit of functionality you can unlock just through point and click. So it's pretty good for that.
And how fast do you usually get to know that something goes wrong?
You can also set how often the monitor will run. So you can set it to run once per day, once per week, once per hour. And it's like you can cron schedule it however you want. There's multiple options. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good.
Right. Yeah, I'd encourage everyone to look into the two issues that we also set up, and if you come up with any kinds of ideas or suggestions around what else we can do, feel free to post those. I think one thing that we can also look at is our service ping health dashboard, because that's kind of a on-demand version of looking at, is everything okay with the service ping? So for example, it also shows missing metrics and so on. And this might give a good indication of potential things that we could turn into monitors. And if anyone wants to play around with Monte Carlo, I think everyone should have access. And I'd also say feel free to kind of set something up and try it out. And it's not the end of the world if you just try to set a like if you get a false positive, or just an example in our main channel currently, because I'd rather everyone gets a bit more familiar with the tool and we play around with it a bit than being too careful right now. I have another item on the list, but since we're already at time, I'm going to just move that to the next sync, so we can discuss that more in detail then.
Yeah, I'm just gonna ask a quick question.
Yeah.
Can we set up those Monte Carlo messages on our channel to ping us? Maybe would that be possible? It seems like the low-hanging fruit.
I can try.
Like the Slack message actually like mention one of the team members, exactly. Basically. Yeah, I'm not sure if it can do that or not. You can probably set it to auto assign the incident to someone, but then it might just email you instead of sending you a Slack message. But we haven't experimented with that part of it yet, so it should be possible, I would think.
All right, thanks.
I think that's a very good point, Piotr. I think that the one workaround that comes to my mind would be to potentially create a separate channel after all. So if that's not possible, we could create a separate channel, and then just everyone in the group needs to kind of set that channel to always send you notifications. That would be a theoretical workaround, but then I think it would also decrease visibility of those kinds of incidents to stakeholders. So we should definitely try out if we can make it work like you said. All right, then. Thanks everyone for attending, and hopefully also see you in the next sync.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.